Good morning, 7th grade. Welcome to day 5 of week 5, April 24th. So I just wanted to go over what you are responsible for today. So I'm going to click on your classwork tab. I'm going to go down to day 5. You'll see you have your lesson here, and then you also have a link, as always, just as an additional support. So today we're going to focus on writing the equation of proportional relationships. Okay, so normally I would click on the lesson to go over it with you. I'm just going to use the smartboard version of this just so that it's larger for me to really show you the important details for this lesson. Okay, so this is the same thing you would be seeing. I wanted you to identify the equation for a proportional relationship. Sometimes this is called direct variation. This is the equation that we'll be using, y equals kx. K is going to be your constant of proportionality or your constant of variation. Okay, when we find k, we can use the ratio y over x. The graph of a proportional relationship will always be a straight line that crosses through the origin, and the table y over x is going to be the same for the entire table. Okay, so there'll be that constant and 0, 0 will be included. So today we're basically just taking everything we've learned this week, finding those constants in tables and graphs, and then writing it in this format, y equals kx, where k is going to be our constant. So if we look at this equation, 3 is our constant of proportionality. Okay, that means that our table is changing by 3 on the y's and 1 on the x, because we could always put 3 over 1 if needed. That would also tell us that our graph is going up 3 and over 1. Okay, so this is what we're going to be exploring today. Here's just a little bit of practice to find that constant. Most of you should be able to do this. It's very similar to what we did in our linear equations. The constant will always be the number that's next to x, the coefficient of x. So for example, this y equals 3x, 3 would be the proportional constant. You have 2 more to try on your own. The answers follow. And then I give you some steps for how you're going to write the equation that represents the different proportional models, which are our tables and graphs. So the first thing you want to do is make sure that your model is proportional. I'm going to tell you that in this particular lesson, all the models are proportional because we're really just focusing on you finding the constant and then plugging it into the equation y equals kx. Okay? All right, so here is a table that we already explored when we were doing our tables. And we found that the constant was 3 over 2. So remember, in a table, it's going to be the change in y. Notice how these are all changing by 3. That's your numerator. Over the change in x. These are all changing by 2. That's your denominator. 3 over 2 is in simplest form, so we can leave it as 3 over 2. We also saw that the table, if we went backwards, if we inversed our constant, we would get 0, 0. So this table is proportional because it includes a constant and it includes 0, 0. So since our constant is 3 over x, we're going to write it in the form y equals kx, and all you do is you replace k with the constant. So the equation would be y equals 3 over 2x. And that's it, okay? That's what we're exploring today. Taking that constant, writing it in the equation. So here's another table. We have the data provided. You guys might have already seen this table before. So you're going to make sure that it's proportional. You're going to look for that constant. So do we notice a pattern in our y's? Yeah, the pattern would be plus 4. Do we notice a pattern in our x's? Yes, the pattern would be plus 1. So our constant would be 4 over 1. And if we were to inverse this to check to see if 0 was there, 0 would be here. If I went backwards by 4, this would give me 0. And if I went backwards by 1, that would also give me 0. So we're going to say, yes, this table is proportional. The next thing you do is you write what the constant is. So the constant would be 4. We just determined that, right? The change in y over the change in x. 4 over 1, which equals 4. And since we now know that our constant is 4, we can write it in our equation. We're going to just replace k with the number 4. So our equation would be y equals 4x. Okay, so that's what you're doing there. And then we're going to also give you graphs. It's the same thing. You guys already saw this graph. We had you guys determine if the graph was proportional, and you said that it was because it has a constant. There's a rise of 36 and a run of 4, and it's linear and goes through the origin. So because it's linear and goes through the origin, we know that it's proportional. The constant is going to be 36 over 4, but we know that simplifies to 9. You always want your constant in simplest form. So to find that constant, again, you find 2 nice points. You figure out what the change is, which is your rise. So our rise here was 36, and then you find your run. Our run was 4. 36 over 4 simplifies to 9. So our constant of this graph is 9, and the equation would be y equals 9x. We're just replacing the k with the constant. Okay, here's another one. So is this graph proportional? I would say it is. Why? Because it's linear, which means it's a straight line, and it goes through the origin. The origin is always that corner, the left corner, bottom corner, where that 0 is. So yes, it is proportional. Okay, now we have to figure out what the constant is. So there's a few bolded points on this graph that helps us figure that out. I'm going to go from 0 and go to this point, the first one. So from 0 to get to this point, I rise up 20. Okay, so my rise is 20. That means my numerator is going to be 20. My run to get over to the point is from 0 to 2. So my run is plus 2. So if I put that together, then my constant is going to be 20 over 2, which is equal to 10 over 1 simplified to 10. Now that we know our constant is 10, we can write our equation, and the equation would be y equals kx with 10 substituted in for k. So we would have y equals 10x. Okay, so that's really what we're focusing on today. There is, excuse me, a wrap up at the end where you're going to put them all together. This is for you guys to explore. I do have the answers on the following slides. We're going to be doing something like this next week, so we wanted to give you a preview of it today so that you have an idea of what to expect on Monday. So you're going to be given a verbal situation. You earn $8 per hour babysitting. You're going to take that and create a table. So in your table, if you work 0 hours, you would have $0. And then from there, you're going to increase according to the rate per hour that you're getting paid. So that would look like this, right? For every 1 hour, you're getting paid $8, and it would keep increasing as the hours go on. Then you're going to be asked to graph it. So these are your points, 0, 0. Then you would have 1, 8, 216, and 324. Your graph would look something like this, okay? We would say that this graph is proportional. Why? Because it's linear, which is a straight line, and it goes through the origin, which is 0. And now we would have to write our equation. So we have to figure out what that constant was. And you can either use the table or the graph to figure this out. So my table was constantly changing by 8 in my y. My x were constantly changing by 1. So my rate or my constant would be 8 over 1, which would make our equation y equals 8x. Okay, we're going to be, again, doing something similar to this on Monday, so we just wanted to give you a brief preview. And this will be what you'll see for your Google form for today. All the models are proportional, and we're just asking you to write the equation that the tables would represent. So you're going to find the constant, and then you're going to write y equals, whatever your constant is, x. Find the constant, y equals, whatever your constant is, x. And then you have 2 graphs as well. Remember, the constant in a graph is always the change in y over the change in x. So how many did you go up? How many did you go over? That is your constant. Okay, a few of you were still swapping them. So it has to be, how many did you go up? How many did you go over? That's the ratio for your constant. Okay, I hope you guys have a great weekend, and we will continue on Monday. Take care.